Make It Now with Linda Lang. Today we're going to make something so quick and easy and usable. How many of you have all those funky old pot holders in your drawer? I mean, they got stain on them, they're shrunk, they're horrible. You can replace them with some new ones and you can make them in less than 20 minutes, I would imagine. So they are amazing and versatile, and you can use any kind of material on the front. You can actually cut out a material that you like. You don't even have to quilt a piece together. This one is called a log cabin. And all I did when I got done was I just sewed down here, and I'll show you in a minute what I mean. Here's another log cabin. Now I'm in the process of making more. This pattern is so fun and easy, and all I did was quilt across and quilt this way. So it just has a really cool pattern, and they're all pretty much the same design but different material. I want to show you how to make this one. You pick 4 squares, actually 5 squares, but the 5th one needs to be an offset, like a plain color or something. It's the same size as this, I just happen to cut it in quarters. How you do that is you take the square that you want for the center, like this, and you simply fold it in half one way. Make sure it's together on both ends and cut. Then you fold it again and cut. Now you've made your square in the middle. So that's how I did this. Now the next thing you do is you attach these little squares to the corners of the 4-inch squares. So you take this, let me see, turn my machine on, and you put a square here and there, there, and there. Now when you do your squares, when you want to make sure that your squares are going to come up the color that you want them. See how I did it? I did a across the same color and across the same color. You can do whatever you want, but that's how I do it. And so now you just simply take these and sew. You sew straight down here on all 4. So let's do that together. I'm going to chain stitch, and I'll show you what I mean by that. I'm not going to back tack. I'm just going to go make sure my stitch length is small. You don't want big stitch length. And then I'm just going to keep going. And okay. And I will cut these pieces apart. Then you take each one, and you see how it's sewn across. You're just going to cut the top part off. That on each one. And then you press them open. So I'm going to do that right now. Then you simply assemble these the way you want them. Like that. Now I'm going to sew these 2 together. Now, one thing I know for sure, and I've seen it done many, many times, is that the squares that you get are not always square. So sometimes you're going to have to re-square them before you sew them together. As you'll notice, I've got this open here and I've got this piece over in here. It's like, yeah. But you know what? I'm going to trim it all in the end anyway. So I'm just going to open that up like that. Don't worry about this being perfect. If you want perfectness, square them up before you sew them together. Okay. Now press. If you'll notice, this is a little wonky. I don't care. I mean, it's so forgiving. So I just cut that little bit off right there so that when I sew it together, it's pretty even. All right. If you're a perfectionist, then make it perfect. Square it off before you sew them together. I just love making these, and my eyesight isn't the greatest anymore, so I don't see that stuff. So now this is, look at that. That's the top of my pot holder. Now I'm going to iron it flat. We're done with the top. Now what you also need to do is find some batting. You could probably get some batting at your local store. You can buy it by the sheet or by the roll, whatever. And then you get a towel, just a 100% cotton towel, kind of thick, terry cloth. And I cut them up in 9-inch squares. So then this is going to go on the bottom. The batting goes in the middle. And the square goes on the top. You can pin it if you like, but I'll tell you what, by the time you get done sewing one line, it's all pinned. I do like to use my walking foot. You don't have to if you don't have one, but I do, so I'm going to use it because it's going to go through some thickness here. It's easy to change them out. You just put on your walking foot. Okay, now I take this and I simply sew in big stitches. I put it about 340, and I sew from one corner to the bottom corner and go right through the center. This is my quilting part. Okay, that's my quilting part. Then you see how this square is? I like to make another line right perpendicular to that square. Straight along the side. Now if I don't hit it perfectly, that's fine. Just get alongside. But you want to go as close to that square as you can. This is just mine. You can do anything you want for your quilting. Okay, this is just what I do. And then I just turn it this way, spread it down, make it nice and flat, and go from corner to corner in the opposite direction. So there it is. So what I have to do now is square it off. Now I do like my grid on the bottom because it helps me with my squaring. I also have a square. I think it's close to the size that I want, but it's not exactly. So I'm going to make this square 7 by 7 by the time I'm done. Then you add the border, which makes it 7.5-inch square. And I think that's a good size pot holder. Okay, so now all I'm going to do is square it off. So there's my top. It goes with all these others that I made. So now what we're going to do is the binding. Okay, I'm going to have to sew 2 together to go all the way around, because this is only 20 inches long. Normally in a jelly roll you get 40 inches, then you don't have to cut it. But if you have to piece it together, then just piece it together. So I'm just going to sew these together just like that. I'm not going to do anything special. I'll be right back. I'm going to iron this flat. You can open it if you want. I don't. So now you do it just like you do a regular binding on a quilt. And if you've never done one, all you do is you fold this in half, 2.5 inches long, wide, and 2 strips long, about 40 inches long. Now I'm just going to iron this like a giant bias tape. So now I take my bias. It's really a neat way of doing the ending. I learned it just recently and I like it. Makes it nice and clean on the end. So I just open this up, turn down the corner like that. And press it. Press it like that. Then I just cut a little of that corner off. Okay, just like that. Then you simply let that fold back like it was, like this, and iron it down. Just like that. Then you lay this on the one side. I start it at the right, and I clip. Now what you're going to do here is you're going to sew inside, leave this open a little bit, till about 1 inch in. Then you close it and continue sewing. I'm going to sew that down. Open this up a little bit. And then close it, take my thread out and go back over, and now continue sewing down. And I just get to about 1/4 inch from the end, and I don't cut my threads. I just pull this out, I flip it up like this, and then I go back down. Turn this potholder around, and I continue sewing down. Get to the end. Pull it out a little bit, fold it up, back down, and continue sewing down. Okay, we're coming down the home stretch on this side. This piece is too long, so I want to make sure that it gets tucked in here. So I just cut it to about here, maybe a little shorter, like that. And you just tuck it in like that and continue sewing. Make sure it's tucked in tight because you don't want it to be loose. Okay. Okay, now you take this and you just kind of fold it up and around. You see how that goes like that? And what I like to do is I like to iron it down. I iron it down. Now you'll notice that I sewed it to the front. A lot of people like to sew it to the back. I like to sew it to the front. I just do the sides. I don't do the corners. Now I do clip it. And you want to make sure, here's the secret, you want to make sure that the seam here is going to be caught on the back. So you want to make sure that this goes far enough over so that when you sew in the ditch to finish this off, it's going to catch it. And if it doesn't, just go back with a hand sew and sew it, or use a sewing machine, and you know that you can just do that too. You want to sew it from the front in the ditch. That means in the seam line, and making sure that it catches the back. And now I've done it to where sometimes it did and didn't, and I just would hand stitch the rest, or I would use a sewing machine and redo it. You know, you can't even see it, especially if you use the same color thread. Now, if I use white thread, it's going to be seen well. So I'm going to change my thread to blue. I'll be right back. I've changed my thread to blue so that I can just make sure that if I go over, it won't be seen as much. but you want to make sure the back has that triangle, like a mortar. I think that's the word. And it comes together like this. That's why it's important to maybe even clip it, okay? I'm going to do that with each corner and clip the corner. Because I'm not sewing it from this side, I'm sewing it from the other side. All right, so now I can start sewing. So I just put it in the ditch, making sure that the back is caught in that ditch. So I'm just going to sew like this. I don't put a loop on it because I don't use loops. I don't know. Do you want to hang yours up? I don't. I put mine in the drawer. So take a look. Awesome, awesome. It comes all the way around and catches. Now, if you'll notice, it has a little bit of extra of a lip here. I'm not concerned about that as long as it got caught. If you don't like this, then just take a hand stitch or use your sewing machine and sew it down. But that's how you make a pot holder. It is so simple and fun and a great gift to give away. Make it now with Linda Lang.